If you look at your local quarter mile or half mile short track, you probably know of some story that happened at that track. They can vary from track to track, whether they are terrible accidents, odd incidents, race stoppages, or whether most have fairly good stories. But sometimes some tracks aren't like this, specifically if they start out bad. And back in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was one track that carried this moniker. Irwindale Speedway in Irwindale, California. Poorly thought track design led to a dangerous environment for drivers, led to some truly horrible accidents that even claimed a few lives in a such short lifetime span. This went on until things came to a head on a summer night in early June of 2002 that caused a major safety change not only to the track, but even an important change in NASCAR history. This is 4 and 40. The most dangerous track on the West Coast, Irwindale Speedway. To understand everything, we need to take a look at the landscape of the West Coast racing scene for stock cars. For years, the West Coast to much motor racing, especially to stock cars, was a very niche market. For decades, only Riverside hosted any type of major racing in NASCAR. And well, the old Ontario Speedway from 1970 to 1980 until the track owners basically went bankrupt. And in 1988, the Riverside Speedway closed down and was demolished not too long afterwards. However, in 1989, not far from the same area that Riverside formerly was, Sears Point, now known as Sonoma, was built and was hosting NASCAR races in 1989. The first NASCAR race with similar features to the old Riverside circuit, that is. By the late 80s, however, other tracks were starting to pop up as NASCAR started going to Phoenix in 1988, a track that had been a staple of IndyCar racing for over a decade, but had more importantly circuited a oval instead of a road course. Then in the 1990s, more racetracks on the West started appearing in NASCAR and even started getting in on it as well. Auto Club Speedway and Las Vegas Mohr Speedway were built in 1996, and Fontana hosted its first NASCAR race in 97, Vegas in 98. Drivers from the West were also starting to become more prominent. Kevin Harvick, the late Greg Biffle, Kurt Busch, and even Jimmy Johnson, who transitioned into stock cars in 1998. To explain this, a group thought that maybe another short track on the West, specifically one near the Los Angeles area, wouldn't be a horrible idea. A group including Jim Williams and former Indy 500 winner Danny Sullivan would find an area that was once a fucking former landfill. Yes, that is a thing. Construction began in very late March of 1998 on Irwindale's 6,500-seat grandstand, as well as a half mile, a third a mile, and an eighth of a mile drag strip. Irwindale Speedway hoped to fill a void left in the Los Angeles basin, left by closures of the aforementioned Riverside and Ontario Motor Speedways and the St.Amant Speedway, which unironically, until about 10 minutes before I started recording this, I had completely forgotten existed. The $7 million project was completed in March of 1999. Opening day would have been on March 27, 1999, which was hosting a midget car race, which was supposed to be a great day. Instead, the track got off to its worst possible start it could have. Casey Dimert was one of those competitors who was racing in the field. Dimert was born in Rossburg, Oregon, and he began racing career at the age of 16, driving a street stock class at the Douglas County Speedway in Rossburg, Oregon. In 1993, Casey progressed to sprint car racing, and the following year he won the 360 car title and was declared Driver of the Year. Dimert became the first driver from Oregon to win a national sprint car touring event. He had competed twice in the prestigious Cooper World Classic at the Phoenix International Raceway, finishing 13th in 1997 and 17th in 1998. Now, the 23-year-old driver turned up to the brand new facility that would ultimately claim his life. The crash happened at 2 p.m. during the first practice session ever held at the Speedway. At turn 3, while trying to avoid a stalled car on the track, Dimert's car struck the wall at an estimated speed of 100 miles an hour, spun and flipped in between turns 3 and 4 before coming to rest. Emergency crews arrived quickly and cut the driver from the wreck, and Dimer was airlifted to Arcadia Methodist Hospital, where he passed away about an hour after the incident. His father, Jim Dimer, was among the hundreds of spectators in the grandstands watching that day. Racing went on after the accident, although it was marred by it. Opening ceremonies attended by Olympic gold medalist Bruce Jenner, Hollywood actor James Garner, and Indy 500 winners Parnelli Jones and Danny Sullivan. 6,500 officially attended on opening night, and major opening ceremonies including whatever this weird shit going on in the background was. Racing continued throughout 1999 at the Speedway, with some marquee events taking place, but it didn't come, though, cleanly. Less than 6 months after the first fatality, another one happened at the track in September. Keith Coward, age 49 years old, was racing the Speed Truck Challenge Series in the Speed Truck main event when Coward and Sean Davison's Chevrolet S10s came together at turn 1 on the 7th lap of the race. Following a restart, Davison head on the padded area of the wall, but Coward spun and hit Davison's truck broadside. Coward was taken to Santa Teresa Hospital in Duarte, California, where he died of head injuries at 11:25 p.m. This death came as another shock, as 2 deaths at the same track in less than 6 months was a massive eye-opener and would be a major red flag, as it's obvious there were major design flaws in this track. Despite this, the track continued hosting races, including a midget sprint car race called Turkey Day, held every Thanksgiving. Future Cup driver Jason Leffler won the first race in 1999, and 3-time Cup Series champion Tony Stewart won the 2000 race. The track was also a big stop for the NASCAR Southwest Tour, and 2000 would be a fairly clean year for the track. There were still accidents that happened that showcased the track's poor design, but things stayed normal throughout. Then 2001 happened. At least, though, for the first 5 months, things seemed, though, safe, until on June 7, 2001, Chris Shields, a 30-year-old chief mechanic for a FACE training center at the Speedway Racing School base in the city of Irwindale, died in a testing crash for a Legends class car. This would end up being the 3rd fatality at the track. 2.5 months later, on August 24, 2001, one of the most harrowing short track crashes of the time occurred. During a late model race, an accident involving race leaders Todd Burns and Kevin Wood on their front straightaway would take place that completely horrified everyone there. As the leaders completed lap 43, Wood came alongside Burns and they would hook together on the front straightaway. Both cars careened into the turn 1 tire barrier, keeping the jutted out wall from impaling a driver, as both cars would flip, with Burns going over the top of Wood's car before he flipped, while Wood hit the tire barrier violently roof first before both cars come to rest upside down and completely destroyed. Unbelievably, both drivers not only survived the damn wreck, but walked away from the crash, completely unharmed. But what this incident did do was it massively expose the terrible ass track design that was showcased. When I mean this track design was terrible, I mean it. Like, look at this shit here. Turn 1, that is so terrible. That, for I believe its first 2 years, was completely jutted out. Like, I'm not kidding. The wall just was like jutted out straight up to where if a car hit that, like broadside, it would probably go through it and cut the car in half and impale the driver and kill him. Turn 2. Let's look at turn 2 now. That turn 2 wall, I think, was where the pit road was. It could have been went through turn 1 that actually led to the pit road, and you came off turn 2. But there's an elevation that if you go off the corner, it completely is elevated, like completely different. And if you get hooked or turned, I'm just gonna straight up tell you, your ass is in huge trouble. This crash right here showcases everything about what I'm talking about. And there's something that's, kind of, foreshadowing that you guys are about to find out that this accident is very similar about. And also in the back straightaway, there's a similar design to another racetrack before it was fixed. Because you guys remember the old worldwide technology back straightaway that had the jutted out wall, where there was another wall right behind it. You guys may remember that? This fucking track had that as well. It has a giant wall, and what's horrifying is that wall in particular very much still exists until the track's dying day. Spoiler alert, the track is, if you know, it's demolished, but we'll get to more of that toward the end of this video. This shitty design here stayed until the end of the track. What crack addict thought this was a good idea? There is no way in hell that you would actually think that this would be, with even a morsel of brain, if you've seen what can happen. A race car can hit literally anywhere on a damn racetrack. It does not matter, both in the infield and the outer section. Especially the outer section, they are very likely to hit literally anywhere on the racetrack. How did any of this shit never cross their mind? Safety vehicles can be put in the back. You can also just kind of, open up the gates back and forth to get to pit lane or not. You think that would be, a smart idea? I know it's not the easiest and short tracks are an issue, but this track is very quick and its obvious speeds are way faster here. This should have been thought of during the whole design process. Now we're in the year of 2002, where the track now had gained a reputation for having a bad safety record with 3 fatal accidents in 28 months and many more close calls, which is not a good thing at all. Through the first 5 months, just like 2001, things remained fairly normal enough. However, now we arrive to June 8th, 2002. 1 year almost to the day after the Shields accident. It's the day of the NASCAR Southwest race, the Cannon Filters 150. This would be a major event, as this would be actually shown on the Speed channel on tape delay, or better to actually say, it was planned to be shown a few days after the race in case they had to edit inconsistencies and make it the better flow, which is something that used to happen back in the day and still is basically a thing until very recent because now flow racing exists. One of the drivers in the field this night was future NASCAR Cup Series driver and father of Todd Gillen, who's currently in the Cup Series. David Gillen was in this race and one of the best short track drivers of the West Coast at this time. Another driver in this field was John Elvis Baker, a 48-year-old from Mesa, Arizona, born August 5th, 1953. Baker had been a veteran in the short track racing scene of the Southwest Tour for what I assume at least to be a decade. He had come here before, and on this night, he would actually be starting on pole. And as the green flag flew, the race got underway, and there were a few minor incidents that occurred, but things seemed mostly normal so far. Then, tragedy struck. On lap 37 of 150, John Baker and Sean Woodside would make contact into turn 2. The contact sent Baker's car glancing off Greg Vogel's car and straight up the track and head on into the gate wall. Then the car slid back down the track before coming to a stop. The race was stopped briefly to deal with Baker's injuries. Baker was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead from fatal head injuries. Baker was the first person to be killed in the Featherlight Southwest Tour Series since the series' inception in 1986. Eventually the race went on and David Gillen would go on to win the race. The race was going to be broadcast on tape delay, as I mentioned a couple days later, but the broadcast was never shown, and the Goodies Dash Series race from Daytona earlier that February was shown instead. After that Saturday night, Irwindale Speedway canceled the next weekend's events and would seal off the gate that Baker had struck, among other track alterations. This situation was what actually got NASCAR to finally make the Hans device mandatory universally. As before this fatality, only the top 3 series of Cup, Busch, and Truck series were required. And since that day in June, no fatality has ever occurred at the Irwindale Speedway since. And for the next decade, the track continued hosting races, including the annual Turkey Day races. However, the company that managed the track, Irwindale Speedway LLC, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy on February 13, 2012, and the track shut down for the 2012 season. However, in 2013, the track reopened, but 2 years later, in 2015, plans were made to demolish Irwindale Speedway and build an outlet mall on the side of the track. However, things ended up not going to fruition, and those plans fell through, and the track continued hosting races. However, on August 2017, Team 211 Entertainment CEO Jim Cohen announced plans to stop operating the track in January of 2018. On December 29th of 2017, track operations were taken over by Tim Huddleston, a former Irwindale late model driver and track champion and father of current driver during that time, Trevor Huddleston, and also Kane and West team owner Bob Bruncati took over as well. The track continued operating until 2024, where on October 29, 2024, Huddleston officially announced that the Speedway and drag strip would permanently close on December 21st, 2024. The track was officially closed that date in 2024 and was demolished in 2025 to make way for an industrial plant. Irwindale Speedway was a major project for many when building it. However, its start was unbelievably rough. 4 deaths in 40 months for a new facility would have been a major problem in terms of consequences. The poor track design for it eventually led to changes, albeit some of the oblique walls still existed to the track's dying day. And while there were many terrifying crashes that have occurred since that day in June 2002, no driver has ever died at the track since that day. Thank you guys for watching. This is Car Gaming here. I want to thank you guys for watching. This was a project I've been wanting to get through and to do for almost 2 years now, even before starting this channel. And this was one of, I think, what was going to be like the big videos for this channel, especially early on. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like, subscribe for more content because I do have more videos planned and upcoming. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys later.